welcome to the Feinstein Summer Concert. I'm Dr. Kristina Deligiannidis, and I specialize in a dynamic, growing field, reproductive psychiatry. My research focus specializes on women's mental health during their reproductive years, especially around pregnancy and delivery. In medicine, there are moments that change everything. Moments that make history. A few years ago, I lived such a moment myself. I was coming in to check on my patient, a new mom testing a new idea to combat severe postpartum depression. Postpartum depression had robbed this woman of her former self. At what should have been a joyous time, she felt totally despondent, disconnected from her baby, inadequate as a mother, dark, hopeless, feeling like a failure. That woman, just 24 hours later, was now sitting up in bed, chatting with the nurses, planning her son's birthday party on her iPad, and smiling ear to ear. It's a total transformation. Her family came in and were amazed by the difference. Her mother was sobbing with joy, asking me, "What did you give her?" We had given her an IV filled with a new medication that rebalances the brain in a completely different way. It was an unconventional approach that disrupts conventional thinking, the kind of trailblazing medicine that Northwell supports like no one else. It's because we have a leader in Michael Dowling, our president and CEO, who always challenges us to disrupt the status quo. He never settles for less than what great health care can and should be, and has created a culture like none other. Northwell Health gave me the freedom and the resources to expand that study. The result? We helped develop the first ever FDA-approved medication for postpartum depression. A treatment that can lift women out of despair, not in weeks or months like other antidepressants, but in 3 days. This is huge, and the need is enormous. Did you know that postpartum depression is the most common complication of childbirth, striking 1 in 9 new mothers? We deliver nearly 40,000 babies each year at Northwell. That's approximately and greater than 40,000 women who may be affected. And the suffering extends to the whole family. A new baby may fail to bond with mom. Her other kids and spouse may feel disconnected, lost without the woman they knew before postpartum depression hit. Until now, no one had figured out how to stop postpartum depression so quickly. As recently as 20 years ago, some doctors would tell women, "Don't worry, honey, just go out and buy a new dress. That'll make you feel better." We're never going back to that. We now have something real to offer. Today, we're bringing this pioneering solution to thousands of women and their families, getting them back to their lives, their babies, and their happiness. But we're not stopping there. This is Northwell. We've cracked open a whole new way to treat depression, We're already conducting the clinical trials, studying the pill form of this medicine to see if it will help people, women and men, suffering from many other forms of depression. What's even more exciting? We're taking these new ideas about brain chemistry and we're bringing them to our work in teleelectronic medicine, trying to figure out if there are possible ways to lift women without using any medication at all. This might seem pretty far-fetched, but what seems impossible is becoming possible at Northwell, thanks to collaborations with brilliant scientists like my friend, Dr. Theodoros Zanos. Please welcome him.
Thank you, Kristina. All right. I have a confession to make. I really hate going to the doctor. Anybody else? Right? I dreamed of not going to the doctor since I was a kid. My mom, of course, made sure I got there. Okay, imagine this alternative. What if you had a device that could listen in on everything that is happening inside your body? A device that could pick up signals of disease way before symptoms appear. Now let's take it a step further. What if that device lived inside your body? And what if it could reprogram those getting sick messages, telling your body to heal itself instead, keeping you healthy without a doctor visit? This isn't science fiction. This is the future we're already creating at Feinstein through bioelectronic medicine. Using computers and artificial intelligence, we've cracked the code, deciphering the messages sent between the brain and the body through the vagus nerve running along the neck. Now that we understand the language, we can start sending new healing instructions to the body using electrical stimulation, painless little pulses from a tiny device. It's happening now. Bioelectronic medicine is helping patients heal themselves from inflammatory diseases like rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, and Crohn's disease. Diseases afflicting hundreds of millions of people. And the possible applications for bioelectronic medicine keep expanding. Kristina mentioned her incredible work with postpartum depression. Other Feinstein scientists are looking at using it to stop severe bleeding, be it on the battlefield or in the operating room. And investigators at Feinstein used vagus nerve stimulation to reduce epileptic seizures. Now, as a computer scientist and a neuroscientist, it is so inspiring for me to see how we can use technology to improve people's lives. People like my mom. My mother has Parkinson's disease. Today, drugs are controlling her tremors. But should those drugs stop working, she also has a bioelectronic treatment option: deep brain stimulation. It uses electrodes implanted deep inside the brain to control motor symptoms and restore motor functions, bringing people back to their normal selves. Now Feinstein's taking this to the next level. As we're learning more about neural pathways, we're working to target all forms of bioelectronic stimulation more precisely, generating more potent responses, delivering more personalized, effective treatments, which means happier patients living longer, healthier lives. That's what drives us to keep discovering, to better the lives of people that we see fully, not just as patients, but as who they really are: moms and dads, friends and neighbors, little kids, with big dreams. Leading the charge is the man who invented bioelectronic medicine, the man who always inspires us through his brilliance and leadership, constantly pushing us to think differently and innovate. The president of the Feinstein Institutes for Medical Research, Dr. Kevin Tracey.
Thank you, Theo. Hello. Aren't they great? Those are two of the smartest people on the planet, and I get to work with them every day. I am a very lucky man. Now it's time for a test. You've all eaten all the brain food that Larry Scott served you. Thank you, Larry. Everybody feeling smart? Who was James Phipps? Anybody? Anybody? James Phipps. Okay. Since no one got that right, let's try another one. This is a lot easier. Who's afraid about dying of smallpox today? Nobody. You got that right. Give yourself a round of applause. Nobody is going to die of smallpox today. And that's because in 1796, James Phipps was 8 years old. He was afraid of dying of smallpox. So were his parents. So was pretty much everybody else on the planet Earth in 1796. But this was the time of the scientific revolution. And because of his research, Edward Jenner developed a vaccine, and James Phipps was the first person vaccinated against smallpox, and he lived. Yeah, good for James. And good for Edward Jenner, too, because as the idea spread, thousands and then millions of people, adults and children, were vaccinated around the world. And what happened to smallpox? It was eradicated from the face of the earth. Now today, you're not going to die from smallpox, and you all passed that test, which is great. You don't have to worry about it. That's because research produced vaccines and antibiotics. And today, your risk of dying from any infectious disease is very, very small. It all started with a single person, with James Phipps. Another question, I want to see hands. How many of you have lost someone you love to cancer? Keep them up. Heart disease, put them, 2 hands. Heart attack, diabetes, stroke, Alzheimer's. Everybody. These diseases are the major killers of our time. And when they take someone we love, it makes you feel like those diseases are always gonna win. That's how James Phipps and his parents used to think about smallpox. But my brilliant colleagues at the Feinstein Institutes don't think that way. Not at all. In fact, we know otherwise because we're taking on today's problems with new research to change the trajectory of history. We have the best people in the world confronting the problems of today. Betty Diamond is the leader in lupus and autoimmune disease research. She heads an institute focused on unraveling the molecular mechanisms of lupus, inflammation, Alzheimer's disease, diabetes, and sepsis. Tom McGinn leads an institute that's mining data from millions of patient interactions, innovating and improving how care is delivered at the bedside, blending physician experience and electronic evidence in real time. John Kane heads an institute focused on schizophrenia and opioid addiction and depression. These are major problems of our time that require the best and the brightest in the world to do what's needed to help these patients. Richard Barakat oversees a cancer institute. He's committed his life to expanding access to clinical trials and new experimental therapies for the 20,000 new cancer patients that come into Northwell every year. And Yusuf Alabed leads the institute that's discovering and inventing new ways to turn off inflammation using electricity instead of drugs. These people are the best in the business. So now here you are too, helping us in this noble mission at the most exciting place in medical research on the planet. We're succeeding because you support us. You donate to our work. You are part of this story. And because of you, we've raised tonight more than $3.4 million, a new record. We have amazing support from extremely generous people like Susan and Leonard Feinstein, Barbara and Donald Zucker, Susan Karchis, and our many board members. They are all invested in us. We have the tireless support of Michael Dowling and Northwell Health. And together with you, we are all invested in a new future. Now, let me be clear. This is not some distant future in a faraway time and place. It's happening already. Today, we don't worry about smallpox. And tomorrow, we might not worry about cancer and heart disease and Alzheimer's. Because there's a common thread to today's killers. It's not infection. It's inflammation. Inflammation is at the heart of today's problems. The good news is, at the Feinstein Institute, we already have a James Phipps today. Her name is Kelly Owens. For 15 years, she suffered from the inflammation of Crohn's disease, failing all available medications, spending much of her time in hospitals and operating rooms, using a wheelchair and a cane. But she was treated with bioelectronic medicine. She received a computer chip implanted in her neck, controlling the nerve in her neck to turn off inflammation. And when the doctors turned on that chip, her inflammation stopped. Today, Kelly's in remission. She goes running at the gym. She told me last week that instead of spending millions of dollars on drugs in the last couple of years, this year she spent so far $19 on Zyrtec because she had an allergy. When I met Kelly, she gave me a gift, her cane. You can see it for yourself, still wrapped. It's sitting there in my office. Come see it, I'll show you. Because that's what it's all about. A patient cured. Her inflammation stopped with a device invented at the Feinstein Institutes. The best scientists in the world are working on the world's most important problems. Each of these scientists has an amazing track record of producing knowledge to cure disease in order to improve patients' lives. And there is so much more to do. We need to cure more women of postpartum depression. We need to enroll more cancer patients in clinical trials. And we need to treat countless more patients with inflammation. I only have one last question. Would you like to hear about more Kellys next year? I thought so. Me too. That's why we are racing down a path to wipe out the diseases we worry about today. And we're going to succeed, and you are a part of the story. Please keep supporting us. We need you. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you.